How's everybody doing? Happy Sunday. Let's get it started. Check my phone real quick. If you got any cybersecurity questions, let's just dump them in the chat. Let's see. My phone's. There we go. So I'll see me. Once again, if you got any cybersecurity questions, drop them in the chat. We're gonna get started here and just do what we normally do. Let's see. There I am on my phone. Started here and just let's get. Well, happy Sunday. Let's go over the few videos I did this week while people fall in. It might be a slow Sunday. So we're gonna go over AWS data lakes. Just talking about cybersecurity. One of the most common, I think, applications now. So real quick, we did a video on the new FBI crypto unit. I think the government's trying to, get on the crypto bandwagon. They're a little late, so they're getting their agency set up and how to move within them and different things. So that's common. So once again, just going over the videos I did this week, then we get in there. Of course, Ukraine, Russia. Russia shut down the biggest two Ukrainian banks. Hit them with denial of service attack. If you want to, once again, go check out those videos. Cybersecurity infrastructure and security agency, once again, the Ukraine and cyber war. The United States. What's up, JM? Asking for, I saw that. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, Anonymous jumped in. I think they got all the help they win. And I'm about to go over the videos I did live on. I thought you might have been on. Anonymous jumped in. So I think really that's all the help you need, man. Anonymous got tens of thousands of hackers around the world that's going to help. But yeah, I saw that. Because I think they had 31 targets they were posting they wanted people to help to get from Russia. This is the other video I did. Script Kitties grow skills and power. It's not the script kitties getting better. It's the tools you can use. Kali Linux, Parrot. There's just so many. Ransomware as a service, malware as a service. So you can actually go out there and rent you some of the top tools if you if you want to get in the hacking game and hack businesses and get paid, right? It's like Amazon. They'll charge you a fee to help you set up those skills and utility. Wouldn't that be illegal though? For which one? For Anonymous helping Ukraine or the script kitty one? Once again, Russian cyber, they had the wiper virus. It actually damages your hard drive. I thought that was kind of unique. So that was kind of a destructive malware. Everybody's trying to get paid. You don't see destructive malware very much or very often anymore. So once again, I thought that was a unique. No, because I think since Russia declared war, and theoretically Russia's the bad guy, so I think an Anonymous, I guess Russia could bring you to court theoretically. Like if you attack the United States, I mean you had to get and bring you to court. So for the Russian, from the Russian perspective, it'll be illegal, right? But United States been attacked by Anonymous too, so I guess it's what side of the coin is from a Russian. If Russia finds you and can bring you into a Russian court, that'd probably be illegal. And that's the live I did. I short notice. Anonymous Collective is officially in cyber war against the Russian government. So I put Anonymous versus Putin, which is the Russian government. So that was cool. Shout out to Gabe. He came up and helped me out. We were going back and forth. We both kind of that government world, but he's government commercial, and even though I'm government commercial, I feel like I'm government because I've been on government site for like 20 years, helping different government agencies set it up. So let's go ahead and, like I said, get to that AWS. I just like to, so those videos, you can go check them out and watch them. Or if you got any questions, What's up, She Stole My Thunder? If you have any questions about any of those videos I did this week, you can always throw them in the chat and chop it up. And of course, I'm gonna drop the link, and if you want to come up, you can. Once I kind of get in the middle of the video, so that was it. Really, it's really all about Russia and Ukraine and the cyber. And like I said, once Anonymous came in and said they were on the Ukraine side, and actually, I think they attacked a couple Russian sites already. So they're off and running. So we're going to talk about what is Data Lake basically. It's a common application used by companies in different ways to help them get data and understand data, right? And we'll talk about there's the data lake and the data warehouse. I've done data warehouses for like 10 years, so it was kind of a little different spin on what I thought a data lake is compared to a data warehouse. It's actually more, shout out to B2B, more data engineers getting your data out there so they can do analysis on it. So that's kind of the implementation standard that AWS is putting out for you to start. So we're just going to kind of walk through this from a cybersecurity perspective and see what that will look like. So data lake, you got your machine learning data, you got your analytics, you got your on-premise data movement, being your logs and stuff. You can keep track of that in real-time data movement. Shout out to Tam if you want to take a metric from a satellite and put them in data lake, right? Because you got machine learning from machines, and you got your scientists, and sometimes they want to look at raw data to figure out what can they glean from the data that's in the data lake, right? So let's go through it, right? Data lake versus a data warehouse. That you see at the top, data lake is data, but it's unstructured. It's used more for data scientists and data analysis. The use case: streaming process, machine learning, real-time analytics. Right, it's raw. Data lakes contain unstructured, semi-structured, and structured data with minimal processing. It can be used to contain unconventional data such as logs and sensor data. It's large. Data lakes contain a vast amount of data in orders of petabytes. Since the data can be in any form, size, large amount of structured data can be stored indefinitely and can be transformed when you use it only. Right? And it's undefined. Data lakes can be used for a wide variety of applications such as machine learning, streaming analytics, and AI. What I've done 10 years ago is data warehouse is more structured. It's business analysts. The use case is batch processing, business intelligence, and reporting. It's refined. A data warehouse contains structured data that is clean, pre-processed, and refined. The data stores for a very specific use case, such as a business intelligence tool. It's smaller, contains less data in the order of terabytes, not petabytes. In order to maintain data cleanliness and healthiness of the warehouse, the data must be processed before ingestion, and periodically purging of the data is necessary. The data is relational, contains historical and relational data such as transaction system. From a cybersecurity perspective, you would secure those kind of a little differently. Who has processes and who can actually look at those different data types. All right. So once again, data lake and a data warehouse are both widely used for storing big data. That's the key, is the big data part, right? But they're not interchangeable terms. A data lake is vast pool of raw data, purpose for which is not yet defined. A data warehouse is a repository for structured, filtered data that already has been processed for a specific purpose. Two types of data storage is often confused, but are much more different than they are alike. In fact, the only real similarities between them is the high-level purpose of storing data. Right. Once again, from a cybersecurity perspective, what it's used for: data lake raw, data warehouse process, purpose. Data lake is not yet determined. Data warehouse is currently in use. User data scientist versus business professional. Accessibility: high accessible and quickly updated. More complicated and costly to make changes. Right. So once again, that's it. Then, from a cybersecurity perspective, once again, we're going to walk through the pros and cons and the different elements used to do a data lake. Once again, raw versus processed. Raw data that has not yet been processed. Perhaps the greatest between the data lakes is varying structure raw versus that. Data warehouse, by storing only processed data, saves on the pricey storage space by not maintaining data that may never be used. Additionally, processed data can be easily understood by a larger audience. Right, so that's the big deal with data lake. It's raw and uncut. You giving it out there so people can figure out what they can get from the data. Data warehouses, you already determine what you can get at the top. Undetermined versus in use, the price of the individually pieces in a data lake is not fixed. Raw data flows into the data lake sometimes with a specific feature in use in mind, sometimes just to have it on hand. This means data lakes have less organization and less filtration of data than its counterpart. Processed data is raw data that has been put into a specific use. Since data warehouse only houses data, all the data in the data warehouse has been used for a specific person in the organization, right? So once again, one of them is for data scientists and one is for business professional. Alternatively, there is a growing momentum behind data preparation tools that create self-service access to the information stored in data lake. Right, I think data warehouse costs so much. You got to put a star schema, get business intelligence, and get it set up for that purpose. I would think a lot of people like to just get raw data and just kind of figure out how to use it. Right? Process data using charts, spreadsheets, and table more. So the most of it, it's not all of it. Employees at the company can read it. Process data like data stored in the data warehouse only requires the user to be familiar with the topic that's represented, right? Because if you have an HR data warehouse, right, there's going to be HR data in it. You know what it's used for. You can kind of figure out the different parts of it. Right. So once again, data warehouse flexibility versus security, right? Flexibility of a data lake versus the security of a data warehouse. Uh, Data lake versus data warehouse. Which one is right for me? Often organizations need both. Data lakes were born out the need of harness big data and benefits of the raw data, granularly structured and unstructured data for machine learning, but there's still a need to create a data warehouse for analytics for business people, right? And the use for raw data. Take raw data, also known as unstructured data, is hard to comprehend, make sense of. It takes time. That's true too. Engineering cannabis. Like I said, I've done data warehouses, so you got to know what they're used for. You got to preset them up. People like you sometimes wants to look at the data to figure out what you can glean off of it, right? From just getting it ready to do artificial intelligence and machine learning. Sometimes, right? You want the raw data just to look at it, right? To figure out what's in it. What's up, Erica? Hello. So, like you said, engineering cannabis, sometimes you need the raw data to look at it. I just done data warehouses all my life because, that's kind of the older technique. People want to have a certain reason to use the data and get it set up. So data lake, you can feed all that other stuff, though. The data lake can feed big data processing, log analytics, the warehouse. Data lakes can feed machine learning, non-relational, relational, right? Because it's the raw data. So once you kind of figure out what you can glean out that data, you're going to put it in a more structured location. But sometimes you just want the raw data to figure it out, what's in there. And this is the kind of reference format we're going to kind of go through from AWS. Get the data lake in the console, or you get it from the CLI. So we're going to go through each one of these boxes from the reference setup from a data lake for AWS. We're going to talk about the cybersecurity perspective of kind of each one of those boxes and what they'll be used for. And as we do that, right, you will learn each what those services do and how they can be used in different formats, right? This format is how would you use those different services in the use of a data lake from a self-service situation. I usually take the raw data, clean it, run it quickly, cluster algorithm, see, yep, facts. And this is kind of helps you gonna sit. Amazon's got a way to help you do that engineering cannabis to set up, cleanse it for you, put a data dictionary on it, kind of transform it so different parts of the data can be like you said, cluster together and figure it out. So Amazon's got some features to help you do that, engineering cannabis. So we're going to walk through those. So how do you set up a raw data lake? And like engineering cannabis says, get those clusters together so he can see the data and kind of help him get it categorized so he can start running his machine learning clustering and start looking at it, running statistical analysis on the size, SPS, and kind of figure out what those data points are in that raw data. So that's what we're going to walk through with this structured Amazon reference of a data lake, right? So the first part is Amazon Cognito. We're going to delve into it, right? It's for authentication and authorization. If you got an on-prem Active Directory, you can hook it up to it, right? So how do you get people to log on? There's going to be different roles in there, aka engineering counsel be doing the machine learning. B2B here, he's the data engineer. He's got to get all the data set up and moved in a centralized location. Security wants to look through the data and make sure it's no personal information, no social security number, nothing in the data that's going to get us in trouble. So there's different roles and responsibilities that's going to peek into this data lake and kind of get it set up and kind of go through it. Like Amazon Cognito provides authentication, authorization, and user management for your web and mobile apps. Your users can sign in directly with the username, password, or go through a third party such as Facebook, Amazon, Google, or Apple. I mean, you logged into websites and they said if you want to, just use your Facebook login, right, to log into the application. You can do that with Amazon Cognito. I wouldn't do it, but you can use third-party websites to authentication and save your passwords and get you in there, right? So the main two components of Amazon Cognito is user pools and identity pools. User pools are user directories that provide sign up and sign in options of users. The identity pools enable you to grant users access to other AWS service. You can use identity pools and other pools separately or together, right? Amazon Cognito users and pools together. See the diagram of common Amazon Cognito scenarios. The goal is to authenticate users and grant users your access to your AWS service. In the first step, your app user signs in through the user pools, receive user tokens after authentication. Next step, your app exchanges your pool tokens to the credentials. Your final app is to give people access to their AWS resource. Right, sir. Amazon Cognito is the front end. It gives you a flat login website. Then you can set up your user pools in Cognito. That's just basically your username and password to log in. If you want to do identity pools, we was talking about that. You can use Facebook, Google, or somebody to sign in. And once you sign in, get your identity tokens, right? Then it gives you access to the Amazon data lake, right? Some of that's going to be an S3 bucket. Some of that's going to be Amazon Glue. Some of that's going to be Athena. But you set that up when a person uses their user identity to log on. What resources are you setting up for them to use, right? So that's basic at a high level. Amazon Cognito is the authorization and authentication setup for AWS. You can use it with any app, right? So once again, for data protection, we recommend that AWS account credentials are set up individually with AWS identity and management, the way users is given only the permissions necessary to fulfill their job. We also recommend secure your data in the following: multi-factor authentication. We know engineering cannabis is a high dollar resource, so we want to make sure when he logs in, hits his phone up. So if somebody ever stole his identity without his phone, right, they wouldn't be able to get in the system, right? So you want to make it hard as you can for the hackers. So MFA is kind of a basic setup. SSL and TLS, when you look on your website, you already see that lock. We just want to make sure all that traffic is crypted. Anything you do from site setup API security activity login. So when you go do your work behind the scenes, we're logging what you're doing and keeping track of what you're doing. And two is if somebody ever hacks your account, we can look in those logs and see what the hacker did. Or if the hacker comes in and creates their own account, we can figure out in those logs what they're done. Right? AWS encryption solution, along with all the default security controls with AWS. And also with that, there's a service called Amazon Macy's. which assists in discovering and securing personal data. So anything you save on the S3 bucket from a data perspective, even though it's raw, Amazon Macy can look through and see if it can figure out that's a real password, credit card, health information. Because as an organization, we need to figure out if we're storing that stuff, because if we are and we don't know it and we lose it, that could be a possible lawsuit. So Amazon Macy just goes through those raw data files and kind of help you identify information you might be storing that you don't know, right? Because remember, it's raw. Like, so engineering cannabis say he needs to get in there and clean it out. So while it's cleaning out, Amazon Macy's gonna make sure it's not in there that that we should be aware of. Part of Cognito too, they have some advanced features. You can do what we said, multi-factor authentication. The second authentication method doesn't solely rely on your username and password. We can do a text message. We can do a one-time password as a second factor. You can also use adaptive authentication with risk management model to predict when you might need another authentication. So right here at that advanced security user pool, configuring advanced security, checking for compromised credentials. So when you put your username and password in there, Amazon actually goes out to the dark web to make sure that username is not out there, and check to see if some other organization is using it or took advantage of it, right? That's one benefits of using Amazon, right? They got some of that super duper security, right? Our individually old password protected because using an algorithm, you can predict new passwords with old people password. Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about with this advanced security feature here, checking for compromised passwords, credentials if they were using. Then the adaptive authentication is kind of what you're talking about right there. It takes your old password, looks out there and see if somebody's hacked it with your same username, then it could say your password is at risk or that username at risk, meaning we can force you to change it or actually just give you a whole new username and password. So Amazon Cognito by AWS gives you some of those secure features. It is going to put a risk number on your username and password by what country is coming for. Is it on the dark web? Has it been known to be hacked? There's a website out there called Have You Been Pwned, meaning somebody stole your information. It uses some of that to come up with these metrics. Right, then the case sensitivity of your password, right? So is username all lowercase the same as username with the big case? Right, I say it should be. So you can put sensitivity or not sensitivity on passwords. So those are some of the advanced features of Amazon Cognito. Why you should use that module for instead of creating your own username and password. Right, and two is once again right there. You can hook it up to Active Directory if you were using it on-prem or not. So we just once again we're just going through these at a high level and kind of getting an understanding from a cybersecurity method of what a data lake is used for and how it will be used. So right there, you see in the purple box is the Amazon Gateway RESTful API. It's fully managed service that makes it easy for developers to create, publish, maintain, and monitor secure APIs. APIs acts as a front door for applications to access data, business logic, or functionality from your backend office. Using the API Gateway, you can create RESTful APIs, socket APIs that enable real-time two-way communications. API Gateway support containerization, serverless workload, as well as application, right? So everybody's on the Docker train and the Kubernetes train, right? So that's what it means by containerless and serverless, right? You can use those features based in AWS. And once again, as a security practitioner, we need to understand those services at least at a high level on how they would be used. The API Gateway handles all involved in accepting process up to 100,000 concurrent APIs, including traffic management, core support, authorization, access control, throttling, monitoring, and API version. The API Gateway has no minimum fee or startup. You pay for the API calls you receive and an amount of data transferred out. With the API Gateway tier pricing model, you can reduce your cost as your API user scales. So yeah, it's pretty cheap. It was like $50 per billion or something. So if you look at the API Gateway, you create, publish, and maintain and secure the gateway. You can call those from anything. dashboard, web app, IoT devices, private applications inside your VPC or on-prem. And once you do the APS gateway, you can call anything from API cache, log watch, and you can push it to Lambda, Kinesis, EC2, and a private application, right? So when you do the API, that's your coming from your internet into your private backend. So your gateway, once again, is the door, and you can do a lot of security around that gateway before you pass that information on to your back office, right? So at the top, and API gateway Lambda. So you do that for authorization. So when you call a gateway, you can make sure it's already logged on. It's got tokens and parameters in there right here. The client calls a method of API gateway, passing a bearer token or request parameters. The gateway, whether Lambda authorizer is configured for the method. If the gateway calls all the Lambda functions, authenticate by the caller means such as calling out. You can use SAML, OAuth, IAM, or receiving credentials. If the call succeeds, the Lambda function grants access by returning output objects containing at least an AIM policy or a principal identifier, and evaluates the policy. If it's denied, you get a 403 access denied. If it's allowed, the API gateway execute the method, caching its enabled authorization setting. So when you use the API gateway, you get metering, security, reliance, operational management, lifecycle, designed for developers, and you get two-way communications with the API gateway. So what's up, Sparks? Glad you can make it. So when you call that API gateway from a client, or you can call it from a comm drive, the API gateway goes through the Lambda authentication functions, right? Does it have the right token, request parameter, principles, and policies? Once it's called, it checks the policy to see if it's allowed to go through. If not, it can be denied in the policies cache, right? If it denies, it's in that 403 back. So every time somebody sends a request to your function or your database, you can send it up for the authentication to make sure it was done by somebody you thought it should be done. It was done by somebody in a certain region, right? So you can do that authentication function and check those requests every time they're called. Right? So if they're called from the back end and if they don't have the proper parameters, somebody got in your system and trying to make function calls. So you can actually block that request with the 403. Then you can actually quarantine that user, right, to figure out, okay, was it something we misconfigured, or is that just a hacker on our system? It is similar to that. You're correct. You're right. It's very similar to that. You're right. It's similar to blockchain with the hashing. I think that's actually where they got it from. They actually should do it from the blockchain, to be honest. Engineering Canvas now you're barking up. But yeah, so each call is requested and checked to make sure, once again, you're hashing and you're doing it from the correct user to make sure nobody's doing a man-in-the-middle attack or spoofing something. Right. So once again, that's coming from the gateway through the Lambda authorization function before it goes out and calls those other routines. So the authorizer is going to make sure that API call gateway is coming from a person or process or has the right permission to be able to do that. All right. And once again, from a cybersecurity perspective, we need to make sure that's coded right and work with the developers to make sure, long story short, it has least privileges, right? So now we're going to go from that API call, it's authorized. Now it's going to the Lambda function, and that function is going to call a backend process. So now we're about to walk through that and talk about that. So the API gateway provides access to the data microservice through the Lambda function. We just looked at that. These microservices provides business logic, data packages, upload, searching, card and administrative function. Run code without thinking about the service. So the Lambda function is, you call a function and it spins up the servers underneath, but AWS takes care of all that for you, right? Run code without thinking of service. AWS Lambda is a serverless event-driven compute function that lets you run code virtually any type of application or backend service without provisioning or managing the service. You can trigger Lambda from over 200 AWS services and software as a service application on a pay for what you want to use. right? So that's this part right here, right? We got there. The function is going to call that Lambda function. Once again, calls the service in the back end. So extends AWS service with custom logic. The Lambda allows you to add custom logic and resources such as Amazon S3 bucket, Dynamo table, so you can easily able to compute data as it enters or moves through the cloud. It's easy to get started with AWS Lambda. You can create your function by uploading your code or building it right in the Lambda console. Choosing the memory and timeout period with the AWS Identity Management Role. Then you specify the AWS resource to trigger function, which can be particular AWS 3 bucket, DynamoDB, Kinesis. So right there, we came out the call, made the Lambda call. We're going to actually work with the S3 bucket at the top, right? So when you put your Java code here, Python, when that RESTful API is called, it's going to say, okay, that's the event. Call your AWS Lambda function. And the AWS Lambda function is going to do something with your S3 bucket, right? That's beauty of Lambda. The trigger is calling that RESTful API call, trigger Lambda function, and we can put it in the S3 bucket, right? That coming in. This shows photos taken, putting them upload them to S3 bucket with the console. When you upload them in the bucket, once again, it can make a Lambda call. You can resize the photo, put it in a table, make it into an HTML file, and put it on S3 again, so you can bring it up in a web browser, right? There's a lot of things you can do with AWS Lambda. Now we're talking about what are you going to actually do with that S3 bucket, right? We were looking at it on the cloud. Solution allows you to catalog new data sets, upload the data sets in the searchable metadata, and create data profiles. So theoretically, since it's a data lake, we would be pulling data into that S3 bucket. And as that data hits S3 bucket, it's going to make a Lambda call. From engineering cannabis, that could be satellite data, that could be data from a financial warehouse, that could be data coming from the stock market, just how stocks are moving together and syncing together, right? You could take data from the Federal Reserve and the stock market and sync them together to figure out if there's some kind of clustering of data or some kind of predictive elements in all those raw files. Right, so we're going to drop those raw files on S3 with minimal effort. The data lake solution stores registered data sets of any size in their native form in a secure, durable, highly scalable S3. The solution creates a data lake console and deploys it in the Amazon S3 bucket for static website hosting and configuring Amazon CloudFront. The console is a static website that uses AWS Cognito for authentication. So we're going to log in, give people username and password and authority to go out and get data and drop them in the S3 bucket, right? When they drop them in certain S3 bucket objects, the Lambda is going to kick off and walk through that data. So we're going to manage the store later, secure and manage the storage retrievable data, managing the S3 bucket using the solution. AWS key management keys encrypts data. So when we put our data in that S3 bucket, it's going to kick off a process and automatically encrypt that data, right? So to be able to do that data, you're going to have to go into that key wallet and unencrypt that data, do the work you want, then it's going to encrypt it back. But it adds data access flexibility, leveraging pre-signed Amazon URLs or user property ID management for roles to control direct access to the data set. So who can drop data in there and who can use it, right? So those are three from a security things perspective we're going to use. AWS key management, pre-signed S3 URLs, or use appropriate AWS identity IAM roles for control direct access in the data set. Who can get the data and who can pull the data out, right? So once again, that's coming from that Lambda. We got the S3 bucket now. Since we got all the data in S3 and it's raw, we're going to use AWS Glue and Athena to help us check those out. Yes, those would be asymmetrical keys. One of them would be public and one of them would be private. So we would give the user who's giving us that data, the public part, they would encrypt it. When they get us in our S3 bucket, we would have a job that has our private key that can unencrypt the data that's put into that bucket. Two, if we couldn't unencrypt it, we know that wasn't the data we were supposed to get, and it's probably somebody's trying to trick us and give us some malware, right? So that's true. It would be asymmetrical. Now we talk about the Amazon Glue and Amazon Athena part, which is those two purple boxes right there, right? So we were kind of walking through how we do the data lake and the security between those two functions. So the solution automatically, AWS Glue has a crawler within each data package. The scheduler data scans to keep track of the changes. The crawler crawls through your data set, inspects portions of them to infer your data scheme, and persists the output as one of the more metadata data tables that are defined in your AWS Glue catalog. So engineering cannabis was talking about going out there and looking through the data. The crawler should go out there and kind of generically with a high level probability saying, okay, this is an address, this is a SSN, this is a username, this is a password, this is financial data. So it's going to go out there and help the data analyst with understanding the data and actually making it set up easier. So engineering cannabis could just start using it. He could look at the data dictionary with a high probability that AWS went out there and figured out what those data elements are, and he doesn't have to do that. This catalog provides a unified metadata repository across a variety of data sources and formats. Customers can upload a data set with searchable metadata with AWS Glue and AWS Athena to transform and analyze the data. Right, so this would engineering cannabis would theoretically can just go and look at the data, and it would be pre-identified. The data format will be set up right, so he wouldn't have to manually do that. Now, I'm sure there'd be a couple mistakes, but if he's looking at thousands of columns of data, hopefully this will have a 95% setup, helping him set that up so he doesn't have to dig into every data element and every data through. So if you look at the top, you get the data put in the S3 bucket. Then you have your crawler at the top. The crawler goes through and with custom classifiers and built-in classifiers. It's going to go up into your S3 bucket or your AWS Redshift, or you can do a JDBC call. But for us, we had raw data in S3. It's going to crawl those data tables and once again pre-identify those, and hopefully makes it easier for the machine learning, even the data analyst and even the data engineer, move that data for you, create your metadata tables in your data catalog, subscribing what that raw data is, right? Because you spend a lot of money and a lot of time doing that. If you could have AWS do that for you at a high probability, right? From a data lake perspective, that would save time. So once again, you got your S3 was raw. It loaded up in the tables. Once it got in your S3 bucket, your AWS Lambda kicked off, your crawlers and your AWS Glue data catalog and your AWS Glue ETL is extraction, transfer, and load. It does directly that for you, and hopefully makes it easier for you to do that, right? Because you spend a lot of man hours, right, with junior people. Hopefully, you want to cut some of those people out, save that money, and work on your your transformation and your load at the bottom. But we walk through that again. Is web a trusted, secure method, or is it better to use regular certificate authorities like Commando? I would give me a certificate authority. You get some trust in there because theoretically I can give the end user my certificate, but I would do both. I would send the user my Commando public cert to upload into FileZilla or something, which I generated out of my key authority, and I would use that to connect to my data lake to be able to drop the data. Or even if it's not user, even if it's a function I created, right? Whatever I got running that function is a user, so that user will be assigned that Commando cert. JM, let me know if that makes sense. So I use them together. So there's some trust in the web, but I'm always going to use a certificate authority that I can give my client cert. So I'm definitely not going to generate them. So it'd be asymmetric. I give them my public cert, right? And I'm going to have my private cert. So when they encrypt it with my public cert and give it to my private cert here, let's see, probably right here in my crawler. When my crawler starts crawling that data, it's gonna have to decrypt it with my private key to make sure it's data that somebody sent me that I'm expecting. So like I said, I will use them both. So once again, the crawler sets up your catalog. Um, it looks through your data, gives it a format, gives it a name. Then with that, gives it a job. Then in that job, I can take that data. Then I know what it is. I can extract it. I can transform it. Then I can load it into a data warehouse or relational data. The other stuff that I don't know about, I can leave in the data logs. Then engineering cannabis can go in there through the web console, and like he said, figure out what it does, cluster it, run analysis on it. Then once he tells me where he wants it at the bottom, right, we can make it a smaller, specific, like a financial or something, data warehouse or operational data store. Then people can run regular BI reports and reports off of. But this is AWS attempt to make it more automated and make it less people intensive. The part we talking about, JM, how do we secure that, right? How do we get the data in the data store S3 bucket encrypted? How do we get our crawler to decrypt it? Is that data source encrypted at rest and encrypted at transit? When we transform it, we got to unencrypt it. Who can see it and who can look at it and who can touch it, right? And once we get in our target data, right, it's got to be encrypted in transit and rest. And when somebody comes and look at it, like Jim, they need to have a certain key to be able to encrypt that data and look at it, right? I guess if it's just our public information, maybe we not encrypt any of it, right? So though, but from a security questions, those are the questions you need to ask to make sure, this is a viable setup. Once again, as a security practitioner, we need to understand basic applications people are going to be rolling, so we know how to secure them and how to walk through a checklist. And once again, make sure the company's encrypting what they're supposed to be encrypting, and only people seeing it who should be able to see it, right? Because some of that data, it could be HIPAA data or health data, depending on FERPA data if we're dealing with education. So that's one reason you got to get that Amazon Macy's over there to help you figure out what type of data you're dealing with, because the type of data you're dealing with is going to tell you what type of security you're going to be needing. So the Amazon Athena on that is interactive query service that makes it easier to analyze data directory. In Amazon S3, you can use basic SQL, or you can click on the Amazon Management Console. Customers can point to Athena at their data to store in S3 and begin using standard SQL run ad hoc queries and results in seconds. Once again, and Athena is a serverless, so there's no need for infrastructure set up to management. Customers pay only for the queries they use. You can use Athena to process logs, perform ad hoc analysis, run interactive queries. It scales automatically, and you can do parallel queries so your results are faster. But the break part of that is like engineering cannabis says. Now he has the raw data, so he can start running statistical analysis. He can start grouping it together. He can start doing it. Shout out to Citizen Lou. But so yeah, that's just kind of a high level of what you would do with a data lake. Like I said, I've done data warehousing for 20 years. So data warehousing, once again, is a little more process predefined, and usually you have a business specific need for data lake. Is you putting some raw data in, and then you trying to figure out what you can glean out of from a specific user. So right there, we just walked through the S3 bucket. We talked about AWS Glue with the crawlers, going through to help you figuring it out. Shout out to Engineer Lou. We were talking about Amazon Cognito, how to put it in there, get your username and password. If you want to use Facebook or Snapchat to do your authentication, it has those identity pools in it, right? So we talking about Amazon Cognito from a security perspective. So let's walk down to Amazon DynamoDB, right? This is their SQL database that they're using into the data lake. And when the files come in and you catalog them, you put some of that raw data in DynamoDB to point back to your raw data to figure out how you can query it and how you keep information about it, right? So Amazon DynamoDB is a NoSQL database, key value. Document developers, you can use DynamoDB to build modern serverless application. You can start small and scale up to petabytes. DynamoDB is designed to run a high performance internet scale application that would overburden traditional relational databases. Once again, it's NoSQL is key value, and you don't have to worry about the hardware. It's NoSQL, so it's going to handle all that hardware and spin it up as you need it. So what's new in DynamoDB? We just talked about AWS Glue. It can handle the views in DynamoDB as a source. You can use partial SQL or SQL compatible languages. I'm an Oracle guy, so Oracle got their version of SQL. Amazon Kinesis data stream you can capture directly into DynamoDB. So shout out to Tim. Sure, I was talking about getting data from satellites, right, or streaming, or even log files. You know, you're getting a petabyte, it's streaming it to your SIM. You can stream all that log files directly to DynamoDB. You can restore even faster. Pricing calculator now supports DB. You can export data from DynamoDB to S3 and use other AWS services like Athena to analyze your data and extract actionable insights, right? So we can keep all our raw data inside S3. If we got some calculations and we combine the tables in DynamoDB, we can export that back out to S3. So all those data files are together that are like engineering cannabis says, that belong together, statistical analysis and clustering of the data. So we can put all those flat files in an S3 bucket, right, and use DynamoDB to point to all of those flat files and unstructured data out there. So once again, you can persist it on this package. And if you go out there and look, they actually have, and I probably run it, the CloudFormation actually build a data lake for you, right? Solutions uses to persist metadata, following tables are provisioned during deployment and only access via the data lake microservices. So these are the scripts you would run in CloudFormation to build your data lake inside AWS and persist to your S3 bucket, right? Let's see what my engineering camera saying. No, true. And you can actually stream from IoT data using this, and that was streaming Kinesis, like the fire hose, and then you can stream it into a DynamoDB and use that to index it so you can figure it out so you can actually get to the data. But he's right. You can actually use this data lake also to stream in IoT devices. So they were streaming Kinesis. Kinesis will make a flat file, write them in an S3 bucket, then your S3 bucket would kick off your Lambda and do that processing, right? It would help you identify the elements coming in, the tables coming in. It looks, there's a little machine learning in there if there's any correlation that the AWS believes are in there, right? So now we're talking about the CloudWatch, because as you come in, those APIs calling and it's watching what those Athena crawlers are doing. So CloudWatch you can complete visibly in your cloud resource and application. You can collect metric and logs from all sort of AWS services. Once again, you can visually monitor those. You can act, automate response, operational changes in the cloud and auto scale. Then engineering cannabis part, you can analyze it, right? So all that's built into cloud watches. Those logs are coming in from what you populate them with. Application monitoring, system visibility, resource automation, and unified operational health. Right. Then at the end, we're just going to talk about IAM roles. What roles are we giving these functions to be able to run? That AWS Lambda is going to have an IAM role to be able to go to S3 and go to Amazon Glue, right? Another functions is only going to be able to go into Amazon DB or Open Search, right? So we're going to put security on the person or that particular service to be able to do that particular job, right? So from a security perspective, we call least privileges. We got to go through each one of those and make sure it only has the permission it needs to do their job, right? And an IAM role is an IAM identity that you can create in your account that has specific permission. The role is similar to an IAM user that it has IAM identity and permission policy that determine what identity can and cannot do in AWS. It says it's similar to a user, but it's just a role. However, instead of being uniquely associated with one person, a role is intended to be assumable by anyone who needs it. Also, a role does not have a standard long-term password credentials, such as a password or access keys associated. Instead, you can assume a role. It provides you with temporary security credentials for your user role, right? So when I got my S3 running, right, it's not a person. I'm going to give it a credential role. So as soon as it start running, we saw that. And we said there's a Lambda that takes care of the authentication and permission. That's going to run to make sure that particular business process has the correct role to run this session and has a permission. Users can use roles to delegate to user application or services that not normally have the access to that role. You might want to grant users to an AW account access to resource that you don't usually have, or grant users one AWS account access to resource another one. Or you might want to allow a mobile app to use AWS resource, but not want to embed an AWS key within the app where that can be difficult to rotate in the store. Sometimes you want to give AWS access to users who already have identities defined outside AWS, such as your corporate director, or you might want to grant access to your account to a third party so that it can perform it out of the user role, right? So once again, instead of creating a user, you would just give it access to that role when you need it, right? Cool is you get just-in-time security when you do that. So you got a mobile app. When that mobile app's doing a certain thing, I put that role on there. When that particular part of that service is done, I can take that role away. So if a user just got the role without getting the other access part, the user wouldn't be able to use that particular web app to be able to attack something, right? Because it wouldn't have that AWS, that IAM role given it to that particular process, right? And once again, we're going to start doing labs in the future. So we just kind of walking through this at a high level just to get a better understanding of what that is. Let's look at the AIM role at the top. A user is assigned a role, and an IAM group is assigned a role. But that's from a policy. From a role, the user can assume it, right, for a short term, and an AWS person can be able to access it for a certain time. So once again, at the top, you have an AM policy that's given to a user or group, and AIM role is given to a user or AWS resource, right? So once again, that resource could be the web app call, it could be the gateway call, it could be an EC2 trying to insert into a database web app. You can just give it to those AIM resources when you need to do it, right? That can help. Yeah, definitely help prevent privilege isolation. That's really what it does, right? Because now it's hard for a user to privilege because you got the privilege, then I took it away, JM. So that's 100% correct on that. I'm glad you highlighted that, right? Because that's what we're actually trying to do. But we're trying to prevent that, right? Then the last part of that's Amazon open source services, which there's basically their Elastic. It's a service that's managed services, easy to deploy and operate. When you create a cluster of the open search, it's fully search analyzed and allow analytics and real-time application monitoring clickstream. So I think that part is what Engineering Cannabis was talking about from IoT. So when you streaming all this data, open search is going to help you put indexes on it and cluster it and make it easier for you to index it so you can find and get back to it. Because when this raw data, if you do a select or some raw Spark query, it has to go from the front to the back. If you got indexes on, high-level indexes like a quick lookup to go to a certain record where you don't have to actually go through a petabyte of files. If you say, I'm looking for a SSN with 317, it can pre-sort those indexes at 317, find it in a tenth of the time, then those records will point to the records from the IoT to figure out where that data is at, right? So it provisions all the resources for you. Cluster launches, automatically text, replace failed services, nodes, reducing the overhead associated with self-managed infrastructure. You can scale your clusters with a single API call with a few clicks. And that's it kind of as the raw data comes in. That right there, shout out to Engineering Cannabis, probably be the IoT. That could be log files, messages, metrics. Right, open source is going to help you index that stuff, find it, and make it easier to search. Then once you get indexes on it, it can put in an application, put in infrastructure, it can put it in the SIM, it can help you search right? So the output will be search. You can analyze. It's got visual logs and everything, right? That's built into OpenSearch, right? Because when you streaming thousands of data, you got to be able to index it, right? So you can go back and find it. So that's what Amazon OpenSearch is for. And like Engineering Cannabis said, you talking about IoT because you talking about petabytes of information, right? How to get back to it. And so that's it. I just want to hit something at a high level. We talked about Amazon Cognito. Once again, you can hook it up with your Active Directory. We talked about the Amazon API Gateway, how it's going to call the business transactions in the back. It's going to check your authorization. Once again, you can use Facebook, Google, if you want to use them as authorization. Meaning you put your password out, it's going to take it, bump it against Facebook. And once it logs in Facebook, it's going to give it a token back that says, hey, this person's username and password was good in Facebook. Put it in Cognito and let that person be able to do the work you assign him to do, right? So all that's kind of built in Cognito. And when you call the API business functions, right, those business functions like S3 will kick off a Lambda business logic, right? Go check the database, go sign it to database, go put it on a timer, right? I could put Java and Python logic in there for when those Lambda runs. Once again, Amazon Glue is going to take that raw data we're going to get, even from IoT and flat files. It's going to crawl through it and help you analyze it, format it, make a data catalog out of it. Meaning it's going to say that's a name, that's the first name, that's the last name. That looks like a SSN. That looks like a bank account. That looks like health information. Right, that crawler is going to help you analyze that data and set it up. Right, it's not going to be 100% perfect, but you yourself won't have to look at a petabyte of information, right? And two, it's going to tell you what data it couldn't understand, right? So you can go to those particular, hopefully a few data elements and figure out what happened. Athena lets you do selects on that crowd data, so you can actually select it. You can join cluster data together. Like I got a data file for customers, then I got the pricing that the customers bought, right? So I can join those two tables to figure out what the customer bought, right? Those could be two separate tables. Amazon DB is when the cluster goes together and it gets indexed, all the information gets put into Amazon DB, right? Because when I'm getting information from IoT, it could be driving. What was your speed? Where was you driving? What was the location? What was the longitude and latitude? How many times you hit your brakes? Did you lock up your brakes, right? All that data is going to be put in to flat files in S3 and Amazon DB, right? And it's going to correlate that, and Amazon OpenSearch is going to index that data, right? So who was going, who was in a certain city or in a certain state, right? It might put a state identifier in there, and I might just want to say, bring me everybody in Arizona. I don't want to look through a petabyte, right? It's just going to look at those index records and says, these 100 million rows are in Arizona, right? Take them out and we can do some analysis on them. So that's kind of it at a high level, just kind of walking through what that data lake was and walking through what security for Amazon Cognito, API Gateway, S3, encryption at rest, encryption at transit. Cognito actually can look at, see if that username is out on the dark web. So there was a lot of security features that was we just kind of highlighted at a high level. Once again, I am a security analyst, so I like to go over certain architectures because in the future, I know I'm gonna be working with developers as are going over those type of architectures. So I kind of want to understand at a base level what they're trying to do, and now I'm kind of comfortable to the security each one of these services provide and ways I can lock them up to make sure they're used. Shout out to JM. We were talking about privilege escalation. How would you use the IAM role to stop privilege escalation? Right. So all those stuff start stacking on each other, and you get your skills set up. Once again, I dropped the link. So like I said, I just want to hit data lakes at a high level. Like I said, I'll go at the top. That's kind of it. What it looks like, what's their standard reference implementation is. Like one of my clients actually was talking about a data lake. So we were going back and forth about how to secure it, how does his company want to use it, from an S3 perspective, is that going to be opening up to the internet? Are we going to do a VPN call so only certain people can drop stuff in there? Once again, we talked about asymmetrical keys. I give you my public key. So when you send it to me, I can unencrypt it with my private key. If I can't, I know something's wrong with that data file or somebody's trying to trick me. All right. So that's just a high level, once again, security of data lake and just kind of how to use it. And shout out to engineering cannabis. And sometimes this is used by machine learning people, artificial intelligence people, because they're getting data and they got to figure out what parts they think is pertinent to them and how they're going to use it. Let's see. I think I'll put the link down there if you want to come up. Like I said, I'm just kind of going over. Like I said, I'm just going over a high level, kind of what a data lake is used for. Once again, trying to just get comfortable too with the AWS services. Oh my God, there's like a gazillion AWS services. So two is I want to drill down in them from a cybersecurity perspective and just kind of see how I would secure. And two is they kind of give you the best practices of what they think it should be used for, right? So then when I start creating some of my automation scripts, right, I would understand how to use those services, properly with the IAM Role, with the CloudWatch, once again with the AWS Glue, and all that built in there. I don't know. I have to do a little research. I don't think so, JM, but I need to check on that now that you mention it. Because I know Gmail's got a few. I know AWS 365 has some cool encryption keys it exchanges with Teams with Gmail. I gotta look and see if AWS has some of that. I know Azure has quite a few JM to do encryption with their email. Their Office 365, they use the Gmail client with a lot of encryption you can pass between there. But I gotta look at AWS to be honest. Like I said, I know what that is from an Azure prospect, but I need to look at that from an AWS prospect. Because I'm gonna start doing a small business series, and I think the first thing I'm gonna do is talking about email and how small business should use it. So I'm gonna talk about it from Azure perspective, and I need to talk about it from an AWS perspective. A lot of people use Office 365 and regular email from Office. So that's why I was thinking it from that perspective, JM, but I would definitely check from a AWS perspective. Anybody got any more questions? Like I said, I just want to come in short on this Sunday. I'm tired and I gotta go to work tomorrow. I'm in the middle of a big audit, so this is gonna be a crazy couple weeks. So we're getting audit from a big company, so it's gonna see how well we done. So that's gonna be interesting this week. So Monday's almost here. Two is just real quick on the Ukraine Russia. I was surprised when Anonymous said they were delving in to help Ukraine. They already attacking Russia. They done hit a couple of their websites already, and I guess made some non-public information public. So I got to figure out what Anonymous is doing to Russia. So I thought that was super interesting when I was looking at that. I did a couple videos on the Ukraine Russian thing. And when I saw Anonymous, shout out to Gabe, he came up and we chopped it up. I think it was me before the billions and a couple other people. We were chopping it up about that. There between huge difference. ISO from an international, they don't really, for me, they don't do a lot with disaster recovery. Their encryption is rigged from ISO to FISMA because FISMA's DoD. I've done DoD stuff for 15 years. FISMA has probably 30% more checks. And really, ISO is for a really generic company. FISMA is really specifically for DoD. So they have super detailed checks called the STIGs that they want you to run on your systems. So there's a huge difference. And stigs are super hard. Gabe hates the stig. Shout out to Gabe. He doesn't like the stig. But now they're super hard in checks. If you look into my compliance playlist I got, JM, I did a NIST 800-53, which is really based on FISMA. So in that compliance playlist, I think I do have the FISMA, where the NIST 800-53, which would be for FISMA compliance checklist, and I kind of went through it at a high level. So yeah, there's a huge difference. I'm a huge FISMA fan, I guess, because I made a lot of money on DoD. So yeah, I think it's way more stringent, way harder with a lot more checks. Shout out to Snuggles for joining us. I seen her yesterday on For the Record TV. Shout out to her. I think I missed some of her questions in chat. We were talking a little bit about Russia on my one of my favorite channels. My young guys, they over there chopping it up. So shout out to Snuggles. So yeah, JM, huge difference. And to be honest, they're actually switching to CMMC. So I think they're going to actually redo FISMA and put it under CMMC, which is kind of I think a subset of what they're doing. So I'll probably do a video on that too, to kind of dig into that data set. Once again, Snuggles, I dropped the link. I know you probably can't find it, but I dropped the link if you want to come up. Shout out to Snuggles. Drop the link. I dropped the link. But so yeah, so that's it. Like I said, hitting the data lake. What's the difference between a database, a data lake, and a data warehouse? Right. Each one of them has their strengths and weaknesses. Like I said, I've done data warehousing for 15 years. Data lakes are raw data that's similar to that, but a lot more unstructured data. Right. Because now you got doctors taking notes, pictures. Young friend of mine is doing taking pictures of stuff and upload them. So how do you get them in there? When you take a picture, a lot of times the longitude and latitude are on there. And there's certain things from a picture that when you scan it, you can tell if it's good or bad. You're welcome, Snuggles. So if you're good or bad. So those are certain things, out there. I got to reach out to a couple people. I'm supposed to be helping them. I've been trying to study for my AWS test, man. I don't study. Now here we come. I'm not like Citizen Lou anymore. I'm old, man. I'm struggling studying this AWS, man. AWS got 1,000 services, it seems like. Now, they probably got about a good 250, though. But it seems like a lot. So, shout out to Citizen Lou. I know he out there putting in that work. So, I probably need to study more and do less videos. But, shout out. My channel's growing, so I'm super happy. I appreciate everybody for their support. I appreciate, everybody supporting me and watching my videos and just different stuff. Like I said, I came a long way in a year, so I'm super happy, super blessed. So I went from 20 views to 120 views, so I'm slowly getting up there. So waiting on Snuggles. Here she comes. Waiting on Snuggles. But no, it's all good. Once again, I hang a little longer, see if anybody got any questions. Waiting on Snuggles. Nah, shout out to Snuggles. I don't want Snuggles to come up on my well, she could. I wouldn't want her to cam up yet. She need to go on a bigger platform than mine. I want to make sure she gets her due. Salute, John. It's just kind of going over data lakes and what they're like and kind of how to secure them from a high level and an AWS architecture and what that should look like. But yeah, so like I said, I'm just gonna hang around a little longer for any I appreciate that. Shout out to Black Heights. I appreciate it. So check out my man. I'm always sharing this platform. So if you need career development, I'm gonna be on his Patreon soon. So I definitely recommend my man Black Heights. B2B. There's so many people in this space. Engineering cannabis. You are you under MEIILME? What's your channel? Are you gonna do your new channel, Engineering Cannabis? Let me know. Drop it in the chat. Let me see. I think you're a moderator. If you're still out there, let me get my man the wrench. Make my man the wrench. Yeah, check out my man Black Heights. Like I said, I send anybody, if you looking for career development, looking for a mentor, looking for stuff, I talk to him, then I send him to Black Heights, man. I think he's got a little more infrastructure than me. And that's what he does. I don't do that, man. I give you some advice and give you some mentor. He's gonna sit down with you and get you a plan, get your resume right, so he's on there. Shout out to him. Textual Chatter. He's kind of in that realm. So those probably the only two guys that I recommend that does that type it. And you interview both of them, and I'm sure both of them will take you. Everybody's got somebody they feel like is working for close for them. But I'm always on this platform, especially you checking me out on Saturday morning. I'm on this platform probably around 9:30. He's pretty early. Have you attended any DEF CON? I have not, JM. I probably start to. DEF CON for me is a red team exercise. They're offensive. They're great. I'm just not an offensive guy. I'm blue team. I'm defending. I'm looking up my CVEs like we talked about. I'm trying to set up my Cognito so nobody breaks in. They're offensive. We're hacking. We're talking about infrastructure. We're showing you how to hack everything from a car to your mouse on your machine if it's wireless, James. So I that's never been kind of my thing. I think I might start going because I just want to go to Vegas and have a good dinner after the pandemic, but I never went to any of that. I would check out my man Alpha Cyber. He's offensive. Gabe A. Shout out to Gabe A. Struggle Security's offensive. That's more questions for them, Jay. Especially I think Gabe A. from Struggle Security. I think that's more up his lane. So I will reach out to him, JM, on that. Like I said, I'm strictly blue. He's blue. He does everything, but I'm strictly blue. He's definitely more offensive than me. Like I said, I do offensive very little just to check my initial setup to make sure I won't get hacked in 30 seconds. JM, but that's a struggle security / Gabe. Um, so if you're interested in machine learning, check out Engineering Cannabis. My man Citizen Lou, we're gonna talk about digital nomading, working. He's in Mexico, traveling around. He's definitely programming. Boot camp guy. He's stretching out in the AWS. We both is. The cloud is the next bag. Hell, I think I'm late on the cloud. So once again, if you don't know me, Professor Black Ops, I've been in the game for 30 plus years. I've taught for 10 years. I'm still teaching. I think I'm about to quit, meaning the university's not getting along. I'm going to do a stream on that. I'm bringing some teaching skills to AWS. What's up, Ty? So once again, I think that's AWS Data Lake. Like I said, from a cybersecurity perspective and analysis, I'm gonna start doing more software reviews. Let's pick a software and review it from a cybersecurity perspective. Just kind of walk through tabletop. I think me and Gabe is gonna do some red team, blue teaming tabletop. Meaning I design some and he walks through like this architecture. How would he attack Amazon Cognito? Right? Could he do, like JM said, could he do privilege escalation? Is there a table in there where he could do SQL injection and pull out my users and my password out of that table through Amazon Cognito? Because I didn't validate my data coming through. So we're going to do a red team, blue team tabletop threat analysis on a few things. So you can walk through and see how people from a threat modeling standpoint, talk about them and defend them, and how do you actually, put those services in place in real life, right? Cool thing is, Amazon has a WAF web application firewall that handles OWASP top 20. One of those is SQL injections, right? So I will put that in front of them. Hopefully, my Amazon Cognito, the Gabe couldn't go in there and pull out my users out. So we're going to do a walkthrough so people can see what threat analysis looks like from a tabletop, and like I said, walking through from a paper attack. Then hopefully we'll do a real attack in the real future. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the support. let's see, JM with the tabletop exercise. Yep, but you can do it as incident response plan, and I just do them as just part of threat analysis because you can actually do a threat analysis with a tabletop that's not part of incident. But yes, tabletop is an incident response plan. So for my incident response plan tabletop, it'd be like, okay, if we got ransomware coming from this server, we walk through it. Okay, will our virus protection catch it? We got a DMZ. Will our DMZ block it? Right? Are we controlling our east and west traffic? If it came out on our web tier, we got multiple web servers on that web tier. Could it go through and could ransomware go through and encrypt that whole subnet? Do we have anything blocking it from VM perspective? Are we VMing? Do we have firewalls on our virtual machines? If we're using Windows or Linux on a VM, they have built-in firewalls. Are we using that to stop east and west traffic? Right. So those would be ways you could tabletop that in incident response, JM. So yeah, it is part of it, but you can do a tabletop without, like I said, I do tabletop for threat monitoring. Threat modeling really is not part of incident response, right? So there's different ways, but yeah, you can definitely do a tabletop. That's the easiest one too. From an auditing perspective, that's really what you want to do to get in and out. Because remember, compliance is not security, and security is not compliance. I can be compliant with my tabletop and still not be secure because I didn't configure it right or buy the right products. So let's see, is there any more questions? Like I said, I'm about done, about to get my nap on. Once again, if you need to get in touch at me, I haven't checked my email this week. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. I'm about to go check my email. I need to check my email more. I just been busy, and it's like I said, been kind of a rough couple of weeks for me. But if you reach out, I'm here to help you. Facts. I'm here to help you. And it might take me a minute to get back to you, but once again, there's a lot of people out here that's helping you. I put my man Black Heights at the top. I think his channel, especially from a career development, I'm fit this helping me. So between him and Tim, I gotta ask for some more money, man. I'm slacking. I gotta get up on my money game. So once again, Professor Black Ops, reach out to me on email. I look at my email. I'm supposed to release every other week, but I've been slacking. I'm about to go check my email. I'm out. Everybody have a great week.